weird. Like to watch him, he just kind of like, he has like, remember in Super Mario Brothers 2, Luigi, when he would jump, would just have like the little flutter legs? That's how Baker runs.
Yeah. Oh, you're trying to control the flutter legs as it comes back down? It's all like wobbly. By the way, super underrated. I don't know why people hated that game so much.
It's bad. That's why.
No, it wasn't.
It was. And still is. It remains a bad game.
No. And it's got some great music.
Buy the soundtrack then.
Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings. Week 10 rankings debate by position. You want the list of the rankings? Easy. Down in the description. You want to jump to a position? That's also easy. Use the time codes down in the description. Smash like and sub to the channel. Well, you are here. Jake Ciely from theathletic.com is on the line to break it all down. I looked at your rankings from last week. You didn't have CJ Stroud at number 1, so you suck at rankings.
I do. I don't even think I had top 5. I super suck at rankings. That's big time. And but hey, look, I wore the shirt for the graphic this week.
That's true. That is the one that we ended up going with as well. Also, you said to play AJ Brown above Noah Brown, so you're an idiot.
I was like, I thought you were actually going to pay a compliment for the AJ Brown thing, because I actually said to go up and pay for him and Jalen Hurts and DFS, and people were like, oh, I don't want to spend that kind of money against Dallas's defense. I thought you were going to give me a compliment, and then you surprised me on that one.
No, you are not getting compliments on this show. This is not happening for you. I want to jump right into running backs and do something a little bit different today. Of course, we'll go over the rankings, but we'll get the injuries out of the way at running back. But there's just a few players in general I want to talk about and their outlook for the rest of the season. So, injury report, Cam Akers tore his Achilles again. He is out for the season. Dameon Pierce missed week 9. I do have him in the rankings this time around. We'll see how that goes. Amare DiMercato missed week number 9. I do not have him in, but I do have James Conner returning, as I made so many spelling mistakes in this newsletter. It is unbelievable. Clyde Edwards-Helaire missed week 9. The Chiefs are on bye this week. Devin Achane is expected to return after the bye week. The Dolphins are out this week. David Montgomery, I have expected in. He should be back this week for the Lions, coming off of injured reserve. Khalil Herbert is eligible to return off injured reserve this week, although I don't know if there's going to be enough time. Don't know if we have enough time to get him ready for Thursday Night Football against Carolina, and Kyron Williams is eligible to return in week number 11. So the rankings themselves, when we go to them, we got McCaffrey back. He's number 1. Kamara, down week. Happens. He's still number 2. Eckler, Breece Hall at number 4. Great matchup. Derrick Henry, Etienne back off of bye week, Mixon, Pollard, Jacobs, Barkley, Taylor, Kenneth Walker, David Montgomery, Ramondre Stevenson, Javonte Williams, Bijan Robinson, Rashad White, Deonta Foreman, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Chuba Hubbard. So question number 1 pertains to Tony Pollard. I did see that he is 4th in the league in running back touches in goal-to-go situations so far this season, but he only has 2 touchdowns. And when you go back and look through Dallas's games outside of the game that they played yesterday against the Eagles and the Chargers game, I don't think that any other game has been within 10 points. Now, these are just the kind of games that Dallas ends up playing. They tend to get slaughtered by really, really good teams and beat the crap out of really, really bad teams. So he's been scripted out in a lot of games. It would be a lot like Jonathan Taylor, for example, yesterday, where it's not like Jonathan Taylor had bad usage or a bad game. Bryce Young just threw 2 pick sixes, and then the Colts didn't touch the ball in the second half. What are you supposed to do when your team doesn't have the ball? You can't touch the ball if you don't have it. So blame Bryce Young for that one. I'm blaming Bryce Young for my faults on DraftKings, but anyone who played any Colts, you can also blame Bryce Young for a lot of the pain that went associated with playing any Colts along with it. So with Pollard, how does he rank the rest of the season? Is he a good buy low guy, or is this just gonna happen over and over?
I think it's not mutually exclusive. I honestly think that Tony Pollard himself did what we expected and thought he could be this year. There was differing opinions. I think you were with me on this, but a little bit cooler than some people were. Similar to the Bijan Robinson. Oh, you were super high on Tony Pollard?
Super high on Tony Pollard. Super down on Bijan. So I'll go 1 for 2 on that one.
Okay, well, but here's the thing. Even being down on Tony Pollard, nobody had him not as an RB1. I still had him as an RB1, even with that, just because we thought the passing game would also offset it, even if there was a concern around the goal line. But at the beginning of the season, too, we weren't talking about, Rico Dowdle is going to steal all the touches. But at the same time, you mentioned part of it is the schedule too. It's not playing even pace games on the score. Like you said, it's either lopsided one way or another. So I think both things are a factor. I think if you expected more weeks to be in range, like, the Giants, they should roll with this game. They should just roll away with it. So you would hope that he has a touchdown before that happens. Carolina, Washington, Seattle, Philly, Buffalo, Miami, and then Detroit. There's a few, like Philly's tough matchup. We know that. Detroit probably and hopefully still week 17 at the same team for their sakes, but probably the toughest. The rest are in the middle of the range or even a cake matchup. It just depends on if they get up super big and super early, like you said. So I think it's two parts. Tony Pollard just isn't one of those bell cows and going to score inside the 5 all the time, but at the same time, the game script doesn't help him. I would still call him a fringe RB1, but last week against the Eagles, when they face the Eagles again, is going to show the downside of that. If he doesn't get the touchdown, he's also not going to get you 150 yards.
It's strange, too, though. Like I mentioned, he's still 4th in the league in touches with goal to go. So he's getting the ball near the goal line. He's just not scoring touchdowns.
You just can't put him in, like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Back in the day, when he got the 7 opportunities that week 1, and then got 7 for the rest of the year. I'm not saying he's as bad as Clyde Edwards-Helaire, to be clear, but he's just not good at punching in the end zone. And then you can blame, you can say, well, maybe it's the offensive line, maybe what, you can kind of pull in Kenneth Walker into this conversation. Kenneth Walker's having the same inefficiency problems he had last year, and that's the fact that he's not good at seeing holes. He's not good between the tackles. He's great at his explosive plays, which is why people like him. He's good at finding new places to go sometimes, but the weird thing is he's not good at seeing what's in front of him. I'm not calling it Trent Richardson level, but it's kind of that similarity. Like Trent Richardson is the worst case. He ran into his offensive lineman. He never saw a lane. Kenneth Walker and Tony Pollard, I think, are in that conversation where they don't always see the best path in the lanes that they have, and this is why they get stopped, even though they should be better. And that's what I'm saying. I don't think Kenneth Walker's trash. But these are conversations you have to have. It's just not every running back is going to be gifted at every single aspect of the game.
Rashad White, I would throw into that mix as well, because Tampa's line opens up holes, and he just doesn't take them. He just tries to bust it outside every time.
Yeah, and there's like some like that where, you can talk about back in the day, the worst case scenario of that one, to go back, of course, like the worst, similar to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, was, remember Brandon Jacobs? Like, why are you bouncing it outside, dude? You're 6'10". Like, stop.
So the other guy I wanted to bring up was Bijan Robinson, obviously. Arthur Smith shaved off his mustache. That's been a story so far on Monday. Maybe that means more touches for Bijan?
I even jokingly tweeted the same. Pat, you need a refresh, man. If you're doing the same jokes I'm doing,
I was scrolling Twitter to set you up with that, by the way.
Okay. That's what it was, that there was hidden touches inside that mustache. Maybe
there you go.
Like,
there you
I
go.
don't... Bijan Robinson, where did you say he was when you ran through this list? You have him 16. I think you could argue Rashad White in front of him.
Okay. Could you argue Donta Foreman in front of him as well? Because I don't expect Herbert to be back. It is a gravy matchup unless Bryce Young just throws it to Chicago for pick sixes every single time. But Foreman was the one who was used again, even in a very tough matchup against the Saints. We didn't expect much from Foreman against the Saints. But against the Panthers, I don't want to say I have super high expectations, but he should be the goal line back. He's most definitely being used way more than Roschon is. That this could be a 15 to 20 touch game for him.
At Arizona with Bijan Robinson. So the only way I'll lean with this is if Kyler Murray does come back, is that you would think like, hey, maybe Atlanta has to be a little bit more aggressive on offense. And then you get receptions for Bijan Robinson, which has been somewhat of a saving grace this year. But I think what you just said, if Khalil Herbert's not back because they do play on Thursday, you could argue, like if you sent me your rankings and we did this right now and you were like, Jonathan Foreman, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, I probably wouldn't even brought it up. I would have just said I want Rashad White in front of Bijan Robinson, and I even would have brought that factor up.
Well, okay, let's talk about, like, if you have Bijan Robinson, or you're sitting there and the guy who has Bijan in your league is just very frustrated, do you want to trade for him? Do you want to trade him? Like, what do you do with him?
I think I do, because if you look at his schedule, so you talk about it, is he's got one of the best. Atlanta has one of the best when it comes to the playoffs. Carolina, Colts, Bears to finish out the season. Those are their 3 games. And that's what I've been saying for, like, I don't mind buying low on him. But if I'm buying low on Bijan Robinson, I think it's actually, I don't want to say it's impossible, because now you might be able to. Last week, people in the comments of my ranks were saying that, like, people still want top 5 running back value for him. And like, then there's no buying low. Just people, it's something you have a conversation with me about every single year. And I know it's not for Bijan Robinson, but it's like those, I'm just not going to draft the guy going in the 3rd or 4th round because I'll buy low on him in week 4. And then you always bring up the fact, well, people drafting players in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round likely don't want to give them up and don't want to sell them low because they're so mad about what they spent. So I think that's part of Bijan's problem. But I think now you're probably getting to the frustration level where you might be able to. I don't want to pay anything inside the top 10 running back value. Once you're outside that conversation, you're talking about the David Montgomerys of the world, which we do like, but David Montgomery's, Kenneth Walker, those ranges, I would buy low because Bijan with that schedule, and if Atlanta was just saving him for the stretch run and try to make the playoffs, maybe he does get back the top 5 value people hoped he had.
If you're sitting there with Jahmyr Gibbs today, do you think you could trade him for
I'd buy Bijan?
Do you think you could trade him for Bijan?
I think you could. Yeah.
Okay. I have Montgomery at 13 this week and Gibbs at number 19. Now, obviously, Gibbs looked great with Montgomery on the shelf, but Montgomery's likely not going to be on the shelf anymore. And I know that Gibbs looks explosive and he's had these big games, but he doesn't do them when Montgomery is there. They like to use David Montgomery.
They love David Montgomery. Against the Chargers, you would say, hey, maybe both of them can eat. But man, even 19 just gives me a sick feeling to like, I think Aaron Jones was 19, if I remember correctly, this past week. He was 18, 19, 20, somewhere right around there. Because I was like, I want to see the Packers before I really believe this. Oh, we're going to unleash it on Malcolm. We've been saving him all this time because we weren't sure. And they did. I would play Aaron Jones over Jahmyr Gibbs because of how afraid I am of that they're just going to give him 7 touches back like they used to.
I would rather take the chance, and this could be fool's gold here, take the chance on the 7 touches with Jahmyr Gibbs, if that's the downside of him, is 7 touches, versus potentially 15 from Aaron Jones at this point. That Packers offense is brutal. And it's a bad matchup against Pittsburgh.
It's not the worst matchup, though. Steelers aren't that dominant.
But it's not a good matchup either when you're dealing with like absolute bottom of the barrel offenses. Like the Packers might we'll drop 2 guys into coverage. That's good enough against Jordan Love.
Yeah, but he had 21 or 3 touches somewhere around there. I'll pull it up.
Yeah,
24. He had 24 touches and 100 yards against a bad matchup.
Are the Rams a bad matchup?
Or not favorable. They're not favorable against the run. They're middle of the pack.
I would say Pittsburgh's probably a less favorable matchup than the Rams are.
Let's find out. I'm kind of curious. You want to do like rush EPA? You want to only do like the past 5 weeks?
Well, but here's the other switch to this, and this could actually play into Aaron Jones's favor because maybe the reception total goes up. But the Packers played that game.
12th and 14th.
The Packers,
Sorry,
the Packers,
14th.
The Packers played that game from ahead the entire time, and they're underdogs.
That's also true
at Pittsburgh.
Okay. But I think Aaron Jones stays on the field versus A.J. Dillon if they're going to be down anyway.
You see, I don't know what the Packers coaching staff is up to.
I don't think they know. I don't think they know what Jordan Love is up to.
I mean, I can tell you what he's up to, and it's nothing but bad things.
Playing like shit? Is that what you wanted to say?
Yeah,
for you.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Saquon, I have at number 10 this week. So we've seen him succeed with Tommy DeVito, but the touchdown upside just cannot be there in that Giants offense with DeVito under center. At least Tyrod wasn't good in scoring points, but at least it was a little bit better than what this could potentially be going up against Dallas. I have him at number 10 this week, but what's the rest of his season look like? Over under 2.5 touchdowns for Saquon the rest of the way.
Under.
Yeah, it's tough.
You know who the backup to DeVito is? It's Matt Barkley.
That sounds like a better option. I'm not going to lie to
you. This is bad. And then also, so the reason I say under 2, do you know their 3-game playoff schedule? Saints, Eagles, and then Rams, middle of the pack. But you get Saints, Eagles in weeks 15, 16. No. I've been trying to trade Saquon Barkley. The problem is now you can't sell high because everybody knows the issue is that this offense is going to be trash. He's going to get 20, 25 touches every single week. But the bigger factor here is, I don't want to, we never want to play I can predict injuries. But given Saquon's history, and if you're going to give him you're going to give any running back 20, 25 touches per week, that is just like a ticking time bomb for me. You have him at 10. If you could get Taylor straight up for him, I don't know if you can, I would immediately trade. I would even consider maybe David Montgomery, even trying to factor out maybe you can get a little small extra piece in a 2-for-2. I'm just terrified that the offense stinks and then he's going to get hurt again just because he's going to get hit so many times.
I'm not so concerned that he's going to get hurt. What I would be concerned about is them treating a minor injury as a reason to shut him down and tank. More than they're doing.
That too.
Yeah, your shoulder kind of hurts, Saquon. Why don't you take the week off?
I mean, honestly, like they have to tank. I mean, they are. They're going to tank whether or not he plays. I'm just looking at your rest of ranks just to see if like there's anybody else I would consider trading him straight up for.
Well, here's a realistic question. If you could trade Barkley for Rashad White right now, Rashad White probably scores more fantasy points the rest of the year. He has tremendous matchups because he plays in the NFC South. Only the Saints are a bad matchup. He's already played them, and he still has those receptions to go along with it. That kind of offsets it in difficult matchups.
It does, but I already knew this coming. Like, their next two games. It's Tennessee and San Francisco.
That's great. I'm not concerned about the next 2 weeks. I'm concerned about the playoffs. Like,
playoffs: Packers, Jaguars, Saints. You get Saints in championship week.
How do you do against the Saints the first time? I don't remember, to be perfectly honest with you.
I'll pull it up right now because I'm looking at their schedule. So I can tell you he did 15 for 56 and then 3 for 22, 0 touchdowns.
All right, so not a great game, but still getting you more than 10 points. That's about like what Barkley is going to get you.
That's probably Barkley's ceiling most weeks now.
Yeah, well, see, that's what I'm saying. That if he just punches it in, at least Tampa feels like they can score points. Could you trade Barkley for Bijan, or do you think people are like, no, thank you?
I think you might be able to pull that one off. And the reason I don't mind the Rashad White one, although, like, again, straight up, I don't think you need to. Like, what I'm thinking is, like, I think you could get Rashad White and a piece. Like I said, even if it was a 2 for 2 and you get like a better wide receiver for like a wide receiver 3 or something like that. So that's why I'd be willing to do something like that.
Okay. So let's keep going down a little bit in the rankings this week. I have Gibbs at number 19, as mentioned. Then I have Chuba Hubbard at 20 on Thursday night against the Bears. Then Aaron Jones. I have James Conner at 22. I think him and Kyler are both playing this week.
I do too. And if it's James Conner, like, there was a part of me 2-3 weeks ago that was like, ooh, do they bring back James Conner and say, you know what? We've already killed you a couple times. You haven't played an entire season to your career. Maybe we only give you 65% of the work, but Keontae Ingram has done absolutely nothing. And now, as you mentioned, Demercado is hurt, who was the only one that I thought could threaten him, especially because he had a decent game against her. I mean, you face the Ravens and you put up almost 100 yards. I don't even care if it takes 25 touches. You have a decent game. But I mean, if Demercado's not out there, and Ingram is not taking anything away from James Conner, so I'm with you. I don't even think James Conner at 22 is crazy. I can see a case over Chuba, maybe, only because they started giving Sanders more work again in that game. It was kind of like a 2/3 to 1/3 split.
It was, but a lot of that came in the second half when they were absolutely out of the game. So I don't know how much that's going to translate in what should be. I don't want to say it is going to be, but should be a closer game on Thursday night against the Bears. I have Dameon Pierce at number 24. Do you think he plays?
I would think so because that was a weird scenario, but even if he does, I wouldn't have him much higher. I mean, Devin Singletary hasn't done much, splitting 2 weeks ago and didn't do anything this past week with all the opportunities in the world, but I don't think that Dameon Pierce is going to go. I don't know. Maybe Dameon Pierce returns and goes right back to 100% like he had 3 weeks ago.
Maybe they were just positioning him with that injury. Madison is interesting now with Cam Akers out. Watching them try to run against the Falcons was embarrassing yesterday. Like the amount of times that they got hit in the backfield, like whether it be Akers, whether it be Madison, not to say that these guys are bad, like they're getting no opportunity because there's no hole to hit. It's just the other team is take the handoff, boom, on the ground. But there's legitimately no one to take touches away from him at this point. I guess Dobbs running it could be one thing for touchdown equity. Maybe Ty Chandler gets back in the mix a little bit now that Akers is gone. But is he the worst of the quote unquote bell cow running backs in football?
Madison, I would say so.
Yeah, for fantasy at least,
because he's been a roller coaster himself, and I actually think this offense is going to be just fine with Joshua Dobbs, as we just saw, and that's not even reactionary. I mean, even before he came in, very brief, but Jaren Hall looked like he was going to have a decent game. Again, it was only very small sample, but they didn't look to be, oh my god, like the Giants. They didn't look like oh my god, Tommy DeVito's in, and this offense can't do jack squat. It was like, hey, this offense is going to be pretty functional, even with Hall, and then Dobbs comes in. Having plays explained to him over the headset at the line of scrimmage from Kevin O'Connell, or in the huddle before he got to the line of scrimmage, and they still did what they did. To your point, I actually pulled it up. The Minnesota Vikings have the 4th lowest yards before contact for running backs in the league. It's actually Bucs lowest, Texans, Titans, Vikings. So your point about always getting hit on the backfield often as well. All that being said, Madison's also been a roller coaster himself. Some weeks it's like, ooh, I see that's the excitement we have for Madison. And then other weeks it's like, he looks like trash. So, yeah, he's the worst of the bell cow running backs for sure.
I still have Zach Moss at number 25. What I explained earlier about the Colts, I saw it's weird what some people want to glom onto as a narrative. They're like, oh, Taylor's back. Look at the Taylor touches versus the Moss touches. And it's absolutely true. He wildly outsnapped him. It's like Zach Moss plays season worst 9 snaps on offense. But again, they didn't have that many snaps on offense.
They didn't. And you could look at that fact of like maybe Zach Moss. Maybe that's the thing is Zach Moss in closer games gets more work to keep it even, or maybe if they have the lead also just to keep the ball.
Or if they have the ball.
Hands and get Taylor hand. If they have the ball.
Like, I'm curious. How many total plays did they run in the second half? On
That's
offense?
exactly. I'm going to work on that to pull it up. I was just about to say the same thing.
Like if I set the over under at 14.5, would you take the over or the under?
14?
14.5.
I would barely take the over, but okay. Second, third, fourth. Here we go. Third, fourth. We got plays. All right. They had 21. Seahawks had 18. That was the least amount of snaps in the second half this past week.
Wow. So bad.
Vikings had 42. Good God.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
I bet you the Panthers ran a lot too.
Panther, second most, 42. Actually, no, tied for first, 42nd. There you go. 42 second. I mean, Cowboys were third at 41.
So
an idea.
I do think that the swing back to Taylor is clearly in place, and that's how it's in my rankings as well. I don't think this is, let's just throw dirt on Zach Moss. He's useless again. I think he could be somewhat viable, especially with 4 teams on bye that you might be using running backs from.
You're 100% right on that one. So I'm with you. I'm not completely. I would have Mouse lower. I'd admittedly have him a little bit lower, but I'm not knocking him all the way down to like 35 or something like that around Charbonnet. Like I'd probably play. Well, I'm going to play Jerome Ford over him.
I hate that. I hate that matchup so much.
Oh wait, who do the Browns have this week?
Baltimore.
Oh, Baltimore. Okay, that's man.
That's the thing. Like Baltimore has Cleveland, Cleveland has Baltimore, so I don't really like any of those running backs.
I'd still play Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards is the base. Gus Edwards, for your point about opportunity snaps and games and all that type of stuff, Gus Edwards sacked in the second half. The very first quarter was actually almost a 50-50 split of Edwards to Hill. Second quarter, it even faded out halfway through the second quarter by halftime. There was 0 snaps actually for Gus Edwards in the fourth quarter. They didn't even use him. So I'm still going Gus over Moss, but I mean, that's only 4 spots.
All right, I can get on board with that. I do enjoy the touchdown upside
The Gus bus.
of the Gus bus. Then I got both the Steelers running backs back-to-back, Warren and Najee, 30 and 31. It's the best Najee's looked in 2.5 years.
It is. And then, of course, they are getting touchdowns now, too, which is just weird.
Yeah, but to watch the game, Warren looks significantly better.
Every single week. But like, how long have we been saying that? For 2.5 years? Or at least a year and a half?
But it's funny that like I'm willing to rank Warren over Harris, maybe because they're both kind of like low upside type guys. Like, how much are you really going to get from them? But to have such a gap, and this is me picking apart my own rankings because the bias that I have is to have Bijan inside the top 20 and Algier at 34, although they're kind of the same guy.
Yeah. And let's say you got Atlanta at Arizona, and it's also a good matchup, too. Yeah, I don't know. I would say Algier. Yeah, but what are you going to do? You're not playing Algier over Brian Robinson, even though they went back to him a little bit more this past week, although Antonio Gibson continues to be a thorn. But this is, yeah, but the thing is like Antonio Gibson, that was actually Gibson's first double-digit game, and his snaps and opportunities, they've been volatile like this, but they've been still hovering in that 30 to 40. Like, his role really hasn't changed. It's just there's been a few more opportunities, especially when you're going to throw 54 times and 45 times a week or everything like that. So I don't think against Seattle, I don't know that's really going to happen as much, which is why I don't mind the Brian Robinson. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, are you really going to play Algier over Brian Robinson? It's the second piece. You're really going to play him over Gus Edwards. So I wouldn't push Algier that much higher, to your point.
It's just tough, though, because I do see that there is a leap in logic trying to say, man, Bijan's so much better than Algier. And while we can kind of see that's the case, the stats do not play that out, and the stats are actually what we care about in fantasy football.
Yeah, but like I said, maybe something changes this week. I'm going to go back to what was the official snap count on those two this past week. I feel like it got worse and then it got better, within the game.
It did, because Bijan put it on the ground, and then he didn't play as much after.
And that was that the third quarter? When was that?
I believe that was early in the fourth. It was either late third or early fourth because that was the first of 2 back-to-back series with turnovers for the Falcons. Bijan fumbled, Minnesota scored, then Heineke threw a pick and Minnesota scored.
Yeah, so he had 69% of the touches through the first 2 quarters. Let's see about the third. Add the third in there. 70% through 3 quarters. And then the fourth is where it went haywire. So there you go. Fourth was... As I click on it, yeah, down to 50%. It was a 50-45 split in the fourth quarter.
In terms of touches or snaps?
Touches.
Touches? I thought
snaps? Yeah, sorry. You're right. I was sorting by snaps. Touches
were
Algier actually had 70% in the fourth.
Yeah, and Algier, I think, ended up with more touches or one fewer touch throughout the course of the game, I think. Let's see here.
Yeah, it was 56-31 before the fourth quarter for Bijan Robinson, but still only 56
for
That's
snaps.
What
and
we
then
want for Bijan, yeah.
And in terms of carry,
no, that was touches.
He didn't have 51 touches.
Percentage.
Oh,
56%, 56% to 31%, 70 snaps percent to 27% snaps until the fourth quarter.
So Algier is kind of like what we talked about with Kendrick Bourne earlier in the year. You know, God rest, he's out for the season. Hopefully he gets better. I love me some Kendrick Bourne in my fantasy lineups. He was the new Jacoby Myers. It was great. But Algier, although he's playing significantly fewer snaps, you know, he out-carried Bijan throughout the course of the game, 12-11. They had 4 targets to 3 targets. Like, whenever he's in the game, he's being used.
He's being used. Unfortunately, it wasn't very good for the first 3 quarters. He actually had negative yards for the game.
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, even though he scored a touchdown, it still wasn't even all that good.
That's true.
So, I mean, but the Vikings D, not as bad as people want to believe it is. It's like a
We've been saying that all year long.
It's like a
Their run
borderline
defense.
It's like a borderline top 10 defense right now.
Yeah, it was similar to the Commander, but it was like the Commanders Titans conversation of like, is it still good or is it great, or is it just the fact because you can throw all over them and their defense on the run side is decent? It also compounds that factor.
True. Wide receivers. The injury report this week, KJ Osborne unlikely to play for the Vikings this week after sustaining a concussion. He looked okay getting carted off the field. He was able to sit up and do everything. So it doesn't seem like it's going to be long term, but your concussions are tough to come back from unless you're Brock Purdy throughout the course of a week. Mac Hollins left the game for the Falcons, so I don't know, more Kadarius Hodge in your life. Mechie exited the game, Josh Downs exited the game, and Robert Woods did not play, neither did Drake London. I don't have any of these guys in the rankings for this week so far. Also, no Devontae Parker, no Curtis Samuel, no Chenault, no Michael Wilson. I don't have any of those guys in, but I do have Debo in the rankings, and I have Zay Jones in the rankings. Josh Palmer was placed on injured reserve. Obviously, we're taping this before Monday Night Football. If you people out there want to watch along with Monday Night Football with me, Cust, and Jeff, we're doing a live watch along on Mayo Media Network on Monday night. So please go tune into that. That's going to be a great time. But I don't know what the after Keenan Allen target share is going to look like for the Chargers right now. I saw that Jalen Guyton ended up getting activated, so he might just be their number 2 now.
I don't know. Quentin Johnston was trending up already. He was already clearly a third. I think he was close to 70%. Again, this is before Monday night, and Quentin Johnston was raw as a prospect. We knew that, and we've already seen him struggle with some of the routes so far. I'm not saying there's a world where Guyton or somebody can't step past him, but at least for tonight, I think we'll have to see how Johnston goes. I think Johnston is the opportunity to be the number 2. Like, he still has the talent.
Maybe, but there could be one problem, Jake.
He's not any good.
He's not any good. Like that's a real not everyone who gets drafted in the first round is good. I saw friggin' Rager running routes for the Patriots yesterday. I was like, oh yeah, the Eagles drafted that guy in the first round.
Don't forget the other part of that. You also saw Rager dropping passes.
That's true.
And
I felt bad. I was burying poor Juju. I was talking to Cuss when we were watching. I was like, man, Juju can't make a catch. I was like, oh no, that's not even Juju. It's Rager.
I do feel bad for him at this point. It's like one of those things where you're playing baseball and the ball finds you after you make an error. It's like every time you have an opportunity, you don't want to mess up, and then you just keep messing up. They also have Darius Davis, too. I'm going to be surprised if Darius Davis just continues to get more involved if, as you mentioned, if Quentin Johnston fails. I still think it's going to be his opportunity first, but we'll see tonight, and then we'll have to rethink about it. And don't forget, Sidney Fioco. Didn't he score a touchdown last week?
Yeah, Semi scored the second touchdown last week, yeah.
Yeah. So there's options.
More Parham in your life is what you need.
More Parham.
I have
love him so much.
I do. Well, like I keep pointing out, he's 8'20". Just throw it up to him in the end zone. He did score a touchdown last week, by the way, after we had discussed.
I know. How do you not have a Parham jersey?
Because he's Jeff's guy. He's on the Chargers.
Oh, okay.
I have Jamar Chase at number 1, Diggs, Amon-Ra St. Brown at number 3, Lamb, Keenan, Ayuk, Thielen, DJ Moore, T. Higgins, DK, Evans, DeAndre Hopkins at number 12 now, Nico Collins, Chris Olave, Deontay Johnson, Devontae Adams, Terry McLaurin, Garrett Wilson, Cortland Sutton, Marquise Brown. We've talked about this for 3 weeks, but if Murray's actually going to be back, that's the guy that you go trade for right now, is Hollywood Brown.
100%. Oh, and I would see if anybody dropped Michael Wilson because he didn't play last week too.
Do we know? But like we know that there's an established connection potentially between Hollywood Brown and Kyler Murray. We don't know that about Michael Wilson yet.
No, but Kyler Murray can throw to more than one person.
That's true. Maybe it's Trey McBride. Yeah,
that would be fun.
Pittman at number 21. I have Debo coming back at number 22. Godwin, Gabe Davis, who did he have blanked on Monday night? Like one catch or something like that? The guy's a roller coaster.
Gabe Davis is.
I understand that, but like, come on, guy. Just like Lockett. Lockett was terrible too. I mean, everyone was terrible against the Ravens, so let's just chalk that one up. Jordan Addison at number 26. Then I have Calvin Ridley, the highest of the Jags receivers against San Francisco at number 27. So I have him at 27, Zay Jones at number 33, and then Christian Kirk down at number 41. Now, this is assuming that Zay Jones is playing. If Zay Jones doesn't play, Christian Kirk will be ranked the highest of the Jags receivers.
Yes. Yeah, we established that a long time ago on this show, and it continues to be true. So lock that in. I'm going to go way, way back up your rankings. I don't care about the matchup. I'm not starting DK Metcalf as a top 10 wide receiver. I don't even know if I would consider him top 20 at this point. Dude hasn't scored double digits since week 4. I pulled it up to see. And I know he got banged up in the one game, but still, they were talking about every single one of these still has 20, 25, 30% of the team's targets and still not doing anything. You know why? Because Geno Smith is in the top 5 of off-target throws when it comes to DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. And Geno Smith is definitively, for everybody that was like, oh, he's a one-year wonder, I got that one wrong. I was like, why not top 15 again? Like, I'll rank him at 13 or something like that. Because what if he's just 90% of what? He's not even 90%. He looks like garbage, and this offense looks like garbage. I know DK Metcalf can hit a big one, but to go back to as you were running through your rankings, here's the thing. What's the difference between DK Metcalf and Gabe Davis at this point?
I'd be willing to lend him the benefit of the doubt because of the injury. And even in that Ravens game yesterday, like he was wide open for a touchdown. And to your point, what did Geno do? He bounced it to him in the end zone somehow. It was like, okay,
well,
sweet pass, Geno.
Last week, 14 targets, 5 receptions. I'm blaming it on Geno. Like his quarterback's not changing. Healthy or not, his quarterback's not changing.
So the opportunity is still there, maybe in a slightly easier matchup than playing the Ravens. And they have played Cleveland and Baltimore the past 2 weeks. DK dealing with injury problems, both with the knee and the hip. So maybe it's taking him a little bit of time to get right. But I hear your point. So where should we put him then? Like, I would still rather play... Because I think there's sort of like I think there's sort of like a line of demarcation here. Like I have like Sutton's been pretty good all year, and the Bills look like a sieve on defense right now. Garrett Wilson. I mean, really, what's the difference between Garrett Wilson and DK Metcalf at this point?
None. And they both have good matchups in this week. I was going to actually say, and you're supposed to, I don't care this wide receivers is the line of demarcation, right? That's what we're doing going forward. I play him over Pittman at this point.
But with no downs, like, and again, that's another thing. Even in the second half of that game, they ran the 21 plays, but there was at one point they weren't even running the ball, trying to milk the clock. They were just throwing like 1-yard passes to Michael Pittman, and Pittman got hurt in that game, missed a series, and then ended up coming back. Like his target share must be like 35% right now.
Yeah, but at the same time, what did the Patriots just do? Like Terry McLaurin limited because they're going to take the best receiver you're going to take away, whether or not Josh Downs is out there. And it's Isaiah McKenzie and Alec Pierce and all their 18 billion tight ends. You're going to either focus on Jonathan Taylor or in the pass game. And now J.C. Jackson's been one of the worst corners in the league, but they still limited Terry McLaurin and let everybody else do damage against them because they focus. Bill Belichick needs to get a new trick if he wants to stay in the NFL, but I'd be concerned about Michael Pittman in this matchup.
I understand that point. I do think that there is a significant difference between the Washington offense and the Indy offense, just due to overall options. And listen, I don't think that like Byron Pringle's great, or Diami Brown is great, or Jamison Crowder is great. But whatever that role is, let's call it the Curtis Samuel role, because he wasn't playing, where those three guys kind of filled in for him. At least that's a role that's schemed to get open with Eric Bieniemy. Like, you don't have to force it to Terry McLaurin because Dotson's open, or Logan Thomas is open, or one of those guys is open, where I just don't see that happening with the Colts. Like, in the passing game, especially if there is no downs, like, who else is potentially getting open to not try to force it to Pittman?
Let's just look at right now. You weren't wrong. 33% of the targets in week 9. Now, granted, it was only how many targets were in that game, but still, it was 33% went to Michael Pittman.
So I think it's a little bit of a different scenario. Like,
I get it.
The Colts aren't running.
I'd still play Metcalf off of him.
Oh, yeah, I had Metcalf at 10. You've talked me down to 17 right now, so I'm with you anyway. Like, I do like DK more than I like Michael Pittman. But Pittman kind of needs to score a touchdown because he's not going to put up your 7 for 200 yards, whereas DK could potentially do that. Like, the games you're looking for Michael Pittman are like 8 catches for 109 and a touchdown, which is a great game. But he kind of has to score in a lot of these situations to be high.
No, but at least, and he's doing it better than Tyler Lockett, who I would move down as well. Like, if Zay Jones plays, I would play Calvin Ridley over Tyler Lockett. Now, I would stop at Amari Cooper because Cooper has that Ravens matchup you're talking about.
We brought this up it was Cuss Moment of the Week on Sunday Night Show. We always have our moment of the week. You should join do you have time to join the Sunday Night Show ever?
Most of the time I'm doing my waivers column, but I could find, especially the back half of the season, once waivers becomes like 15 guys because everybody is either rostered or hurt, then yeah, I could have some time coming up.
All right, yeah. I think we have Mike Leone this week on, and then I think we might be taking a week off from the weekend.
Maybe post-Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's over the holiday season, that kind of fun. But
yeah.
The Amari Cooper thing was like on his touchdown grab. I mean, he actually played really well yesterday. Like, he's constantly open. It's just no one can get him the ball.
Except for the ricochet touchdown.
Yeah, that's the thing, though. Watson makes that pass, and it's a ricochet off the helmet that goes directly to Amari Cooper. Now, if you zoom out on that play, who is Deshaun Watson throwing the ball to? There's no one there. Like, the direction he was throwing, there's not a Browns player, there's not a Ravens player. No one is standing where he's trying to throw the ball.
I legitimately don't know. I'm laughing because I know exactly what you're talking about. And I was ticked off because I'm like, like Amari Cooper, even in a decent matchup. And I'm like, seriously? That's how he gets the touchdown? Seriously? Like, it wasn't even intended for his team. And he still got it.
The other guys now, so after Amari Cooper, we got Super DeMario at number 30. He had one really nice catch taken away. I thought he caught it, but they ruled it not a catch. Pickens, Flowers, Zay Jones, Tank Dell, Shaheed, Dotson, Boyd, Brennan Cooks, Christian Watson. Like, Christian Watson's a fucking dead fish right now with Jordan Love.
Why do you have him there?
Because they're still taking shots with him. Like, he's gonna. Like,
I don't even care.
Like, 39 is going to be wrong because he's gonna have one of these games where it's 4 catches for 125 yards and 2 touchdowns. But then he's gonna have a whole bunch of games that's like 1 catch for 9 yards on 20 targets.
And I don't even care. I would play Jonathan Mingo over him because Jonathan Mingo ended up finally being the number 2. He ran the same amount. They both only ran non-one route. Adam Thielen and Jonathan Mingo ran all but one route together, and DJ Chark was way below him, actually clearly the third option. And that hasn't happened yet, and it finally did.
The best part is, guess which guy had the best fantasy game of those 3?
DJ Chark.
Gee, of course he did.
Because he got the touchdown.
I know.
Because he got the touchdown. But I guess against Chicago, I'm playing Mingo over Christian Watson. This is what I brought up in all in football. I'll say this. This is why I would just drop Christian Watson. Because we've been waiting for it to happen. And you and I, this is another thing you and I talk about every single year. The problem is you can't play Christian Watson until it happens. And then once it happens, if you try to play him the next week, you want that to happen. And then what if it doesn't? Then you're going back to, you got to wait another game for it to happen again. And at this point, it's just, you're going to be the end of the season. Like, I just don't even want to mess. You need almost 2 games back to back to trust him at this point.
Well, and the other thing, too, we've talked about this, the subterfuge to one of the other teams. There's 2 ways that you can do this in fantasy football. One is to take a player like Christian Watson and just simply drop him. And hopefully a team above you in the standings picks him up. Like, hey, that guy's good. He had great draft equity. And then they play him. And they put them in the lineup. He scores like 3 points or something like that. Or you try to trade him to one of the bigger teams for like not a lot whatsoever. whatsoever. And then people think that like, oh, I fleeced that guy. I'm definitely playing Christian Watson. Then you just get him onto one of the good teams so he can tank their teams.
You know what the other problem is though? I'll hold on to Christian Watson on the one remaining team I have because I did that with somebody last week, and you know who I did it with, Pat?
Tank Dell?
Najee Harris.
That happens. We're not saying that he's going to have a bad game every game. That's not the point of that.
Right.
It's just he's going to have like 2 good games for the rest of the season, and you just hope they don't happen against you in the playoffs.
Exactly. Now, to be clear, I wouldn't drop Christian Watson to 55, but I would also move Jonathan Mingo up.
So I moved Mingo up to 44 and put Christian Watson at 45, which is 1 spot ahead of Noah Brown and 1 spot ahead of Kaderil Hodge and 1 spot ahead of Khalil Shakir.
So it's funny, like I was actually going to throw out the conversation to have. I was going to go 2 spots in front of that, and I was actually going to say Alec Pierce versus Jonathan Mingo, just because.
Well, I have Pierce in without Downs. I don't have Downs in the rankings.
Without Downs, and Pierce ended up being the most used after that happened, but still Isaiah McKenzie was in the mix. I don't know if I just trust Pierce in the fit and the style of this offense. But no, I think it's the same tier. Pierce, Judy.
I can bump him down. We'll put in Pierce behind Shakir. Boom, easy game.
I'm okay with that.
Let's see.
Shakir was nice to see. They're running a lot of 3 wide receivers now.
Yeah, and he's the one who's running them, playing 71% of the snaps on Sunday night. I think that's 3 straight weeks over 60%, which is good in an offense that theoretically is good.
Yeah, and they brought back Quentin Morris, which was my concern about using 2 tight ends, even though one is Quentin Morris, and they didn't. Quentin Morris was only on the field, I think, like 10% of the time.
So here's my guy this week, Tristan Jackson.
Tristan Jackson? I had a feeling you're going to bring him up.
Oh, yeah, Thirsty Jackson? This guy is great. I don't know where he came from, who he is, but with KJ Osborne out, he's the guy running snaps now, not Brandon Powell.
The funny thing is, Nicole, my wife, she actually goes, "Did they say Christian Jackson?"
That's his name?
Like, no.
It's Tristan Jackson, right?
Yeah, I was like, no. And then my buddy was on the phone at the same time. And I was like, no, it's not Christian. Because they were thinking it was Christian Wilkerson with the K. You remember him?
Nope.
And I think that's where we were like going down this whole conversation route of this, Jack. But yes, it is Tristan Jackson. That's your dude? That's your dude? That's who you're going to this week?
I mean, I'm not going to. I'm 53. He's 1 spot ahead of Kyle Phillips.
I mean, I'm looking right now. I'm going to pull up the Vikings. Did he actually run ahead of Brandon Powell in that game?
He did. He played more snaps. I believe
more
so.
Snaps.
More snaps after Osborne
ran one more route. He actually ran one additional route to Brandon Powell, 35 to 34.
And he wasn't playing when KJ Osborne was in the game.
Yeah, no, that's you're not wrong about the fact that he was the route leader after Addison. So there you go.
Because I remember I was watching the game very intently. I was like, who is this guy? It was just like Sullivan on Carolina. I was like, the fuck is this guy? I've never heard of this guy. Where'd he come from?
Sorry, I'm taking a drink.
Do you have any
I could do a spit takeover?
Do you have any hot Sullivan on Carolina 3rd string tight end takes?
No, I do not. I'm even seeing which Sullivan that was. Steven Sullivan? No, I don't even know a Steven Sullivan. I'm sorry.
Stevie, get him in your lineups.
Like who was the backup quarterback that got activated this week that even Embry didn't have? He profiled over 1,000 college players, and Emory didn't even have him in his football game plan guide. And I don't remember I'll look this up because it was. Do you remember there's like some random tight end or quarterback that didn't even his name wasn't even real?
I don't know. I have no idea what you're talking. Was it Arizona's back? No, they had Driscoll as their backup, didn't they? Jeff Driscoll. I think he was Clayton Toon's backup this week.
I can't find it. Keep going. I'm gonna find this guy. That's the biggest thing. I don't remember who the hell it was.
I was trying to think. Okay, it is the Eagles. We were discussing yesterday who the Eagles' backup was when Hurts got hurt momentarily. I was like, I'm pretty sure it's Mariota, and then it turns out it is Mariota. So good for me for remembering. Was it Mariota? It was Mariota. Yeah. Tight ends. Injury-wise, what do we got here? We got Dallas Goedert has a broken arm, so maybe by the playoffs he could be back. I wouldn't say drop him until we know the full extent of what's going on. Who do you think benefits the most there? Because they kept running Julio out more.
For who benefits in that loss? Devontae Smith, honestly.
Yeah, probably.
I just think that's all it is he gets back to more consistency.
So he is probably going to be placed on injured reserve. So we'll see about that. They're on bye this week. Darren Waller was placed on injured reserve as well. So Bellinger He tried to throw a pass on a 2-point conversion. That was fun. Brevin Jordan, I guess that doesn't really matter, but he also missed week 9. And Gerald Everett is expected in for Monday Night Football. What is it then? Who is it?
It was the guy backing up Brett Rippon. It was Dresser Win.
Doesn't sound like a real guy. You mean Spurgeon Win?
His first name is Dresser, Dresser, and I pulled out his game plan guide. It's 1,000 players, and I'm like, Dresser Win, who the hell is this? And he wasn't in there.
Do you think that Stafford is out for the season, or if he'll be back after the bye week?
If you would have had this conversation, asked me this last Wednesday, I would have said after the bye. But it's weird because they went all the way up and said, oh, it's a game plan or game time decision. And we kind of all speculated that he wasn't going to play, especially with the bye coming up. But I don't know if you saw the same thing I did after the game yesterday. There's all this like, oh, there's no certainty of when Stafford's going to be back. It could be longer than expected. Well, and like, why did that all of a sudden like pop out after Sunday? Is it because maybe they're thinking of throwing in the season? And then it's like, why at this point? Kind of like the expectancy we might have had for Kyler Murray if they were 1-9 or something like that. But I don't know if I would guarantee that he's going to be back after the bye. Are you setting up a question about the running backs or wide receivers for this?
Yes, I am. What do you do with them? Because they're either the best sell highs or the best buy lows. You got to make a choice.
I had that same conversation on All Football this morning. It's because I'm going to go with people tend to be a little bit more scared in these scenarios. So I would lean towards buying low. Yeah, I would buy because I think you could get Kupp for a wide receiver too, especially because he was on that slow, like that 2-game downturn right before this even happened in the first place. And then Nakua for a wide receiver 3. If you can't get those values, or on the flip side, if you can still get wide receiver 1 for Kupp and wide receiver 2 for Nakua, I would sell. So it really depends on what you can do in your leagues. You might be able to do the same thing. You might have leagues where you can sell high and buy low in others.
Just trying to think. If you had Chris Godwin, would you trade him for Cooper Kupp right now? Because I would.
That I would. I thought you were going to say Puka Nakua, and then I was going to say that's kind of a toss-up. But if you could trade Godwin for, I think that's a good scenario like that to get Kupp, I would. If I had that as my only option as Kupp, I'm the person like you. I'm shooting for first place, and I would want more than that if I had Kupp.
Would you trade Calvin Ridley for Kupp?
Yes.
I would too.
Because Zay Jones could just get hurt again.
Yeah.
Here's one.
Okay.
Would you trade Kupp for Devonta Smith, knowing that Dallas Goedert's hurt? Because I would.
Oh, that's tough. Yeah, probably just because of the uncertainty. Like that's enough of a lateral move. Like we know best case scenario, Kupp is the best receiver in fantasy football. In this scenario, he might not even be playable if Brett Rippon's playing quarterback.
Exactly. Would you trade Kupp for Marquise Brown?
No.
Okay. But you would trade Nakua for Brown, right?
Yeah, I would. Well, I'd want to hear that Kyler's actually playing.
Yeah. Right, so, yeah, not that they're just like, oh, we're going to wait another week.
Well, no, not even wait another week. Like, there's still a scenario where they activate and they're like, yeah, we're not playing you, pal. Take a seat. Just because we want to.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. And not even just this week, but just like for the rest of the season. I don't think that they do that, so I would be invested in Hollywood Brown. Cooper Kupp isn't the guy that I'd want to leverage in that because I just don't think you need to leverage. You could get better than Marquise Brown for Cooper Kupp at the moment that you could trade like Nakua, I suppose, for him.
Sure. That makes more sense. Yeah. Was that not the cruelest thing in sports this weekend? Is the Cardinals going, here you go, Clayton Tune. You enjoy the Browns matchup.
Well, we've discussed this. It's like the third straight show that I brought this up, and I'm pretty sure that Kyler was ready to play 2 weeks ago, and they were going to play him. Then they looked at the schedule like, Baltimore, Cleveland, why don't you stay on IR for a little bit?
Yeah. I'm with you. It's messed up if you think about it.
It's like, here, Clayton Tune, you go play this game.
At least they sent Josh Dobbs to another team.
True. So the tight end rankings themselves are, let's see here, Sam Laporta at number 1, Taysom Hill at number 2, TJ Hawkinson, Mark Andrews, Evan Ingram, George Kittle, Dalton Kincaid, Dalton Schultz, Cade Otton, and Trey McBride. That's your top 10 at tight end.
Dalton Kincaid should be 5th.
Okay, done.
That was tough.
Can we tell him try not to leapfrog people because that doesn't work?
Tight end. Is there anything more than a tight end wants to always try to jump a defender? Like, is that like built into the position or something?
I don't get it. Like, what is the upside of doing it? Like, once a year, you'll see one guy do it in the open field and he keeps running. 99% of the time, they either fumble or get hurt trying to do it.
So you overshot the percentage, but I was going to say 1 in 50, which would be 98%. So there you go. I was going to be right there with you.
So do you have a problem with Taysom at number 2?
No, that's why I chuckled when you said it, because until it stops, you can't. That's where he deserves to be.
I mean, he's their goal line running back.
He had a receiving touchdown. The first, I was legitimately surprised it was his first one of the year when they said that.
Outside of the top 10, I have Logan Thomas, Njoku, Pitts, Ferguson, Jonnu Vision, Parham, Cole Kmet, Musgrave, Hunter Henry, Michael Meyer. Just you don't want to go. You don't want to go lower than Musgrave, I think. That's 18, so you don't have to.
Yeah, if you're super, I mean, I feel like Musgrave's on teams. If you're you mentioned the other one. If you're super desperate, Daniel Bellinger is going to be out there. But I don't want to go that low. But of all the names that you mentioned in front of them, most 99% of those teams probably have these except Parham. I mean, Parham and Bellinger would probably be the only two that you could actually go get off waivers right now.
Yeah, I would agree. Quarterbacks for the week, Daniel Jones is out for the season with a torn ACL. Jaron Hall, guessing lost his job. We don't know that yet. He also has a concussion. So
they did. Right before we came on here, they said that Josh Dobbs is starting this week.
All right, Stafford missed week 9. He's on bye week. Kyler Murray is expected in, at least by me. I think that he's playing, so he's in my rankings. That could change. It's not till Sunday, so who cares? Justin Fields, I have as questionable for Thursday Night Football, because the rumors were that he could have played this week. They didn't play him. They put the Bajon out there to kill all my under-rushing props because he turned into Michael Vick for one quarter, and then he threw 4 picks. So maybe they should have just kept him rushing. I don't know, but Fields might be back. I don't have him in the rankings right now, so maybe that's the talking point that we can get off on here, because I have Badgett at number 13 against Carolina. Would Fields be a top 5-ish play against Carolina?
So I'm looking right now, and while I'm looking, by the way, can we bring up the fact of like how hilarious your betting tweet about the Germany game was? The Marquez Valdez,
and of course, he ends with 21 yards too.
That was so ridiculous.
Well,
for everybody that doesn't know, the Marquez Valdez-Scantling under, and you just tweeted it and say, of course, he's going to catch the first pass and ruin this.
And he did catch the first pass and ruin it. I also had Justin Watson, his first touchdown. It got overturned.
I forgot you had that.
I knew it wasn't going to be a good day for me immediately, within 20 minutes of the first game starting.
See, everybody out there, if you ever go to Vegas, this is where you immediately just walk back out the door and go get some food. Like, this is, stay. Don't triple down.
Well, I had all of those, and I had a big Badgett play. Fortunately, the Run the Sims prop sniper gave out Kaderil Hodge over 1.5 receptions as the best play on the board, because he was playing plus 120. For him to have over 125 or over 1.5 catches, I was like, all right, I'm basically all in on this to get all my prop money back, and fortunately it hit.
Good. I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
But to get to the question, if Justin Fields is in there, I was looking at who Stroud has. He's got Cincinnati. I'm not going over it. Like, that was amazing. But the three, we were just talking about CJ Stroud. The 3 games before that, it was like 11, 13, and 12. It was kind of, he was, sliding back down. I would play Fields over Russ Wilson. And then what we talked about.
Lamar's against Cleveland. And Lamar hasn't been good either, fantasy-wise. Great in real life. Bad in fantasy.
He apologized to us.
Good.
He apologized.
Thank you. Thank you.
I know. So Goff against the Chargers, it's indoors. I'd still trust Goff before Fields on his first game back. So I'd slide him in at 6.
Okay, and I have Kyler Murray at number 10. Like, I'm in if he's playing.
If I waited for Kyler Murray, I'm putting him in my lineup.
Yeah,
like,
and you
have
have
for Jacksonville this week.
Jacksonville plays San Francisco, so.
I think you can make an argument over. You
could, but I'm just trying to pump the brakes a little bit here. Like, Trevi's been good.
That's only 9.
Brock's been pretty good, but Jacksonville's defense has been really good. I have Geno at number 12.
Too high.
I don't know if it is. Like, there's a series of both bad quarterbacks and bad matchups this week. Like, when you start going, I have Badgett at 13 if he plays.
Why do you hate Sam Howell?
I mean, as long as they're not playing Baltimore, I actually like Seattle's defense. They've been pretty good.
It's been okay.
It's been good.
Sam Howell I would play over Geno, and I would play Sam Howell, period, at 12.
Okay, I'll put him at 12. That's a Jake Ciely memorial ranking of the week. Sam Howell.
Memorial. Why did I die?
You will after playing Sam Howell.
Hey, it's worked all but 2 weeks. I'm okay with if that's my quarterback that I live with that doesn't end up being a top 5, 6 quarterback I drafted, and that's what I get by having the last quarterback on the draft. I'm happy with it.
So it's Howell, Geno, Badgett, Minshew, Will Levis, Heineke, Derek Carr, Baker, Watson, Bryce Young, Zach Wilson. If Bryce Young and Zach Wilson are 21 and 22, you know there's some real problems with this week. Because after that, it's like Pickett, Mack, Dobbs, Jordan Love, Aiden O'Connell, and your boy, Tommy DeVito.
Tommy DeVito. I know it's not the best matchup, but that's what I was actually going to say. I played Dobbs over Bryce and Wilson. I'm surprised, knowing you, that I would have thought you would have had Baker higher because of the matchup.
You never know what he's up to. It's weird. Like to watch him, he just kind of like, he has like, remember in Super Mario Brothers 2, Luigi, when he would jump, would just have like the little flutter legs? That's how Baker runs.
Yeah. Oh, you're trying to control the flutter legs as he comes back down? It's all like wobbly. By the way, super underrated. I don't know why people hated that game so much.
It's bad. That's why.
No, it wasn't.
It was. And still is. It remains a bad game.
No. And it's got some great music.
Buy the soundtrack then.
Should I do that this week so your kids can look at the list of my top 10s?
Yeah, that'd be great. So, I mean,
best video game songs, done. Doing it. That's this week.
I mean, we don't have to. I mean, you basically just go through the end. I mean, I haven't played any like recent video games, like anything in the past 20 years, but I would guess that like most Zelda games have awesome soundtracks.
Their soundtracks overall, but it also depends. Mega Man, their games, you could put like 5 songs inside the top 10 for Mega Man.
Okay. I mean, I don't really care about Mayfield. He's number 19. Like, whatever.
To get back to the important part that everybody tuned in for.
Yeah. Defenses to close this out. Running Baltimore at number 1 this week with Dallas, the Jets, New Orleans, and Seattle as the top 5. Because, I mean, Heineke's still going to take sacks regardless of what happens. He's having the Jameis season, right?
He is Jameis. He's like the lesser touchdown Jameis. That's the big, actually lesser arm and lesser touchdown Jameis from that 30-30 season. Yeah. That's who he is. He's just like the 80% version of that.
Yeah, and he's not throwing as many picks, too, so that helps. He's just taking a ton of sacks. Pittsburgh at 6, San Francisco, Cleveland, Atlanta, Indianapolis, Chicago, and Carolina on Thursday Night Football, then Cincinnati, New England, and Buffalo. Then you got like Vegas, Tampa Bay, Jacksonville, Tennessee. You probably don't need to go that low.
Hopefully you don't have to go that low. I've seen this. Buffalo's been trash, by the way. Buffalo's actually been a bottom 5 defense all of a sudden, but it's Russell Wilson, so they're still in play.
Yeah, I don't have them. I mean, I have them at 15. I don't have them as a start.
No. I was just seeing if like I was going to knock them completely out of the conversation and say like I wouldn't want anything to do with them. I was like, so where'd you have Seattle?
Seattle, I have at 5.
Oh yeah, Seattle is 5. Okay.
The thing about Buffalo's D is just if their defense is going to be good as a fantasy prospect, you need Josh Allen to sun run the other team in like the first 20 minutes of the game. And then Russell Wilson has to pass 40 times or something like that.
Which is always possible, although Josh Allen really hasn't been doing that of late.
No, not at all. It's been a real bad look for the Buffalo Bills recently. All right.
I think, I was going to say the Patriots and Tampa Bay were the other 2 streamers that I had this week.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of defenses that there's not a lot of streaming options that aren't 60% rostered at this point that you have inside your top 15.
True. All right, that will do it. Pat Mayo Experience. Jake's rankings come out Tuesday evening as Waiver Wire comes out Monday evening on theathletic.com. You can always follow him at AllInKid. What else you got going on?
You just mentioned it. I mean, that's really it. I'm going to see Bill Burr tomorrow night, Tuesday night, so that should be fun.
Nice. I saw him 2 months ago.
Did you?
Yeah.
Was it good?
Yeah, it was great.
Did they make you do the whole stupid phone thing they're making us do where you have to put it in that thing that you can't open till the end of the show?
Yeah, that's pretty, amongst like major comics, that's pretty common.
The only time that ever happened to me was Kevin Hart. I didn't know that was a common thing.
I mean, that happened to me with Chappelle like 10 years ago. I saw him at a really small venue.
Really?
Yeah, it was the first time
It's been around that long?
Yeah.
And they don't even let you do the watches either, because I tried that with Kevin Hart. I was like, I'll just use my Apple Watch and then, scan it that way. And they're like, no, you got to take your watch off too, which annoyed me.
Sorry. Take a hike.
Hey, I got to tell you, if there are people out there willing to listen to the audio from a recorded Apple Watch, then serious problems out there.
You know that that's the case, that people would do that.
You got to be desperate. Just go watch the special on Netflix when it comes out.
Yeah, and the specials are always different because I saw like the Mulaney one that's out now. I saw the first performance of that at Just for Laughs, like the summer before, and like it's different. It was the same, but it was different. So get new jokes.
Mix it up a
there,
little
too.
bit.
Well, yeah, because he's still working it out at the same time. That's why they don't want it recorded.
Okay. Well, that was Jim Gaffigan. So we saw him, and it's the weirdest ending. It's like he was stopped in the middle of a joke. He was just like, and then walked off stage, and that was it. No, like curtain call or anything. Like just walked off, and legitimately the entire audience just kind of half stood up and were like, "It's over," and it was weird.
Maybe he had to go. Maybe he didn't have to pack his Apple Watch. Was like, oh shit, I gotta go. See ya.
It's the bathroom break.
Yeah.
That's what they take there.
So at All In Kid, you can follow Jake at the PME.
Yep.
For me, smash the like and sub to Mayo Media Network. All the rankings are down in the description and on DK Network. The watch along live on Monday evening, and then the rest of the shows on the Pat Mayo Experience the rest of the week. So thank you for watching, subscribing, and downloading the audio podcast, because that always goes a long way to helping us out. Thanks for watching. I'm Pat Mayo. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!